It's not an uncommon thing that in the world of Fallout 76, where particular modes like Survival Mode, Nuclear Winter or Vault Raids were once part of our day-to-day experience, but later removed down the line or sunsetted from our screens. Some people might feel that it was inevitable that modes like these would be removed, given that at the time, the game itself provided a plethora of bugs and issues that would result in negative criticism and community feedback that would eventually leave the developers no other choice but to seal the vaults to these modes, to then later be reopened and repurposed in other ways for players to use. But regardless of how these modes were perceived, it's undeniably true that these modes gathered a cult following, and even to this day, longtime fans of the game wish they could revisit these modes in some way, shape or form. And now that we're almost 4.5 years into Fallout 76's life cycle, and given that a lot of the bugs and issues that plagued the game at the time have been more or less resolved, and support for the game continuing for the next several years, could these modes finally make a return and find a place in our day-to-day experience? So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at Vault Raids, what they are and how they could make a return in the future. So without any further ado, let's dive right on in. A good place to start before we get into how we would see a situation where Vault Raids would make a return would be that we firstly need to take a look at what were Vault Raids. Vault Raids were special instance dungeons recommended for high-level players that would require a team of 4 to enter a vault and complete 3 separate missions, with the first mission being made available for a week and then resetting the following week with the second mission, and so on and so forth, with each raid repeating every 3 weeks. The first Vault Raid, Dead in the Water, set inside Vault 94, was released on August 20th, 2019, which allowed a team of 4 to enter the vault and tasked players to complete specific challenges such as repairing leaking pipes inside of the atrium and residential wing, locating ID cards, and acquiring pump reset codes from the engineer's lock terminal, which would eventually lead players to the next stage of the raid, which would involve similar tasks such as finding and repairing pipes, restarting the vault's reactor, completing randomized tasks, and eventually having to face off against the dreaded Stranglerheart. As players were completing each of these phases, they would also face off against enemy encounters, and given that the location of the raid was set inside of Vault 94, the main enemy group that players encountered were Mirelurks, Mirelurk Kings, and also Mirelurk Queens. The next 2 missions, Vault Mission Meltdown and Vault Mission Washout, worked very similar to the very first mission we just covered, such as entering a particular location, complete different tasks, defeat certain enemy encounters, regroup, and move on to the next phase. However, these missions would lead players to different locations located around the vault, such as the Vault 94 Gek Chamber and also the Vault 94 Residential Chamber, and so on. But one main thing that made these raids so challenging for players were the particular requirements required by players in order to claim better rewards and loot upon completion. Upon entering a raid, one party member selected one of 3 difficulties for the current mission, choosing between Novice, Standard, or Expert. Novice was not timed, while Standard and Expert had increasingly challenging time limits and also enemy encounters. Higher difficulties provided better rewards in terms of XP and loot, and if each member of the team died or the timer ran out, the mission failed and had to be restarted from the beginning. A similar feature that we see with the Daily Ops mode is that if the mission is completed within a certain time limit, you'll be rewarded with better loot and rewards upon completion. When it came to the rewards, Vault Raids rewarded XP, caps, improved repair kits, Vault 94 steel and crafting materials, along with unique weapons, armor and crafting plans. Unique sets of Vault armor plans were used as rewards to unlock new armors with special stat bonuses on both the Standard or Expert difficulty level, which included the Thorn armor, Solar armor, and also the Stranglerheart power armor. However, when the announcement came that Vault Raids would be shutting down, and as of the Wastelanders update, most of the rewards were instead made available by ways of utilizing gold bullion, with the exception of certain rewards such as player icons and emotes becoming legacy content. While Vault Steel became an item sold for legendary script by the purveyor, and then eventually with the One Wasteland for All update, which introduced the Daily Ops mode, Vault 94 reopened and was made available as a possible location players would need to complete missions in as part of the mode. It's no surprise that when any new game mode is introduced into any video game, developers who work in these modes always have a plan and a vision for the future, and where these modes will eventually lead to. However, before players seen the introduction of the Wastelanders update, we received this announcement from Bethesda. Last year, we were excited to open the door to Vault 94 and bring you repeatable high-level content in the form of Vault Raids. Through community feedback we received and our own monitoring since that time, we've decided that Vault 94 and its missions are not delivering the quality of experience that we had hoped to provide. As a result, we are currently planning to shut down Vault 94 alongside the release of the Wastelanders update. But with Vault Raids, that too had a future, and as many players theorized, other vaults located around the map such as Vault 96 and Vault 63 would eventually open up and be included in the lineup for Vault Raids. Well, today's world of Fallout 76 paints a different picture, but fans were correct. Vault 63 along with Vault 96 were slated to be included with the Vault Raids game mode, and both of them had missions that eventually became cut content from the game. Vault 96 would include two separate missions, Vault Mission Creature Feature and Vault Mission Gone Viral. Both of these missions would see players carrying out similar objectives and tasks they need to perform, similar to the Vault 94 raid, and through each of these phases players would need to work together to defeat enemy encounters and complete these objectives within a required time period. I will say it is interesting to read some of these objectives that were originally developed for part of these raids, as well before Vault 96 became repurposed and used as a location for the Steel Rain storyline, players had always wondered and questioned what Vault 96 would look like, the lore behind it, and what horrifying secrets would be uncovered upon entering the vault. However, given that Vault 96 was repurposed both for storyline content and also a location used for daily ops, Vault 96 is now fully explorable and players can piece together through holotapes and terminal entries the purpose of what Vault 96 was used for and the experiments Vault-Tec conducted on its residents. However, when it comes to Vault 63, still to this day the doors of Vault 63 have remained sealed, but even though it remains sealed, it too had several missions planned for its inclusions with the Vault Raids, in the form of Vault Mission Reactor Meltdown, Vault Mission Fire Outbreak, and Vault Mission Riot. Unfortunately, there are no data entries or description of any of these missions available. However, we can probably quickly theorize from the proposed mission titles that players could have possibly had to deal with locations within the vault that were engulfed by fire, and more than likely would have to find ways to extinguish fires throughout the vault, and similar to the Vault 94 raids, fix broken pipes and try to prevent a reactor meltdown. We can also theorize this through the environment and visual landscape surrounding Vault 63, and then given that the vault is situated within the Ash Heap region and surrounding the vault, we can see parts of the entrance and hills above the vault entrance lit up by pools of fire that still rages on to this day. Now, we can also suggest that given that the Hornwright testing site is located directly above Vault 63, we could theorize that maybe there could have been an accident here that resulted in an explosion that resulted in the landscape we see here. But I feel similar to how the Gek in Vault 94 was sabotaged by a group of raiders who destroyed it, which resulted in the landscape we see in the Maya region. I feel that something similar could have possibly happened within the halls of Vault 63 that resulted in a reactor meltdown, and because of this is why we see the visual landscape that's presented to us at the entrance. Now, it's understandable since the days of Vault Raids, we've seen the introduction of modes such as Daily Ops, and last year with the introduction of Expeditions, which when you take a step back and look at how these modes operate, you can see a lot of similarities from the Vault Raids mode. Some could say that Vault Raids needed to rise and fall to give way for these modes to become a reality, but I honestly believe if Vault Raids were still a thing, we would probably still see these modes become a reality anyway. The reason I say this is that both Daily Ops and Expeditions were introduced heavily through the development of story content. For example, Daily Ops has you the player working alongside Vernon Dodge to disable radio interceptors or restore uplinks across different locations within the mode, while also facing off against different enemy encounter groups, but the mode itself existed mainly off of the back of the Steel Dawn update that will eventually follow it. Before the Brotherhood made an appearance with the Steel Dawn DLC, this mode essentially was leading you to believe that you were helping pave the way for the Brotherhood's arrival to Appalachia by ridding these locations of the radio interceptors left behind by the enemies of the Brotherhood, which time and time again have hinted towards the Enclave being the main culprit. And when you look at Expeditions, we can say the same thing. The mode itself has you making your way to the pit to help the Union in its battle and survival against the Fanatics, and similar to modes like Daily Ops and Vault Raids, you're tasked with completing certain objectives and challenges in 3 or 4 separate phases, and eventually battling an end of dungeon boss and claiming rewards such as XP, loot, and unique items. However, compared to Vault Raids and Daily Ops, Expeditions isn't timed, so you have the time to explore and complete the missions at your ease. Which leads me on to my final and main point, which is how Vault Raids could return. So I posted a poll here on the channel about a day or two ago, and the question I put to you, the viewer, was, under the right circumstances, i.e. possibly delivered alongside story content, similar to how NPCs guide you through different sections of missions, through modes like Daily Ops, The Pit, etc., would you like to see a return of vault raids? Firstly, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who voted, with the poll almost hitting 600 votes. But as we can see, 59% of people said yes, they would love to see vault raids return, 7% said no, they wouldn't, and 34% of people said that they never played or had a chance to play vault raids. But from this, we can clearly see that there's a lot of people out there who would love to see vault raids return, be it for nostalgic purposes or even have the chance to claim some of the legacy content that was made legacy upon its removal. But to this day, as Fallout 76 has grown and has seen significant improvements over the years, there's a lot of people out there who never played vault raids and would love to be able to play them, as just like myself and many others, we as members of the community crave new and exciting content. And given that Fallout 76 has seen many updates, hotfixes and improvements since the days of vault raids back in 2019, I feel in 2023 or 2024, vault raids could successfully be reintroduced and implemented in a few different ways. One of the ways I feel vault raids could be reintroduced could be alongside the introduction of new story content and DLC, very similar to size and scale of the Steel Dawn and Steel Rain DLC, but through the introduction of an Enclave DLC. I mean, like it or not, it's been said thousands of times by fans of the series that players would love to see an Enclave DLC in the same size or bigger than the size of Steel Dawn and Steel Rain, which introduced the Brotherhood of Steel back into Appalachia. But with the possibility of seeing an Enclave DLC on the horizon, vault raids could be a part of that experience. And the reason I say that is that if you look at the intro to Fallout 2, the Enclave were not that opposed to seeking out vaults and barging their way in and claiming the treasures that lay inside. I feel this could be a great reason to back up the story to this DLC as to why we see vault raids make a reappearance, and could be a way to help open the doors to Vault 63. Another idea and suggestion comes from Matthew Flores, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who very kindly left his feedback and suggestion on our poll, and he stated, if it's handled better story-wise, then yes, a group of NPCs from some faction allowing us to do vault raids would be pretty interesting. I'd say the Brotherhood should be the ones to make us do vault raids. One, it would fix the fact that Reg somehow has Strangleheart power armor, and would be a reward we get from the raids again. Two, it would fix the fact that Strangleheart power armor is from the Brotherhood of Steel, because it's actually an Ultrasight power armor covered in vines. And 3, the reason why the Brotherhood of Steel would want to raid Vault 94 is for 2 reasons. One would be to get the Ultrasight power armor back, because their original group there sent pretty much never returned, and the second reason would be of course to find out why they never returned in the first place, which would explain the whole ordeal with Vault 94 and how it's basically a giant hazard. Matthew does go on to mention some really cool and interesting rewards that could be included and introduced as part of this suggestion, but a huge thank you to Matthew for your comment, and thank you for taking the time to leave your feedback. And my last suggestion would be to just bring vault raids back. Maybe vault raids don't need any story content to back it up, as quite honestly they were just a ton of fun to do with your friends. And yes, I know at the time the mode itself was riddled with bugs and glitches that would result in server crashes, but in 2023 a lot of those issues that plagued the mode at the time have been more or less resolved. And there you have it, vault raids and how they could possibly make a return. Hopefully you enjoyed today's trip down memory lane, and hopefully with the ideas and suggestions like this from the community, it could possibly inspire the developers to revisit fan favorite modes like this again. And if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to click that subscribe button and turn on that bell notification button to keep up to date with everything Fallout related here on the channel. And before we head on out, I want to say a massive thank you to all of our channel members and subscribers over here on YouTube, as it means the world to me that you enjoy my content and the work that I produce. For our Bethesda fans, if you find yourself shopping on the Bethesda store and would like to support the channel, you can use my creator code BTPineapple041 to receive 20% off of your purchases at checkout. And if you'd like to support the channel in a more personal way, consider checking out my merch store, which has an array of t-shirts, mugs and other pineapple related merch, which I'll leave a link in the description of this video. And lastly, to you, the viewer, the person who stumbled upon this video, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, Vault Dwellers, stay safe out there in the wasteland, welcome to Vault 93, and I'll catch you all in the next video.